Hi, everyone. I am Violet de Ayala. I'm the founder of FemCity, and you're joining us today for one of our last panel discussions on the topic of forgiveness. So, the month of May, that has been our theme for FemCity. Forgiveness, meaning forgiving yourself for decisions you've made in the past, forgiving yourself for business decisions or career choices that you've made in the past as well, or even just releasing some of the things that are holding you back. So I've asked two of our FemCity global experts to join us today. They're from our FemCity Global program. I get a chance to meet with them all the time, which I love. We are going to dive into this topic today, specifically about how to release what's holding you back. And what I have recognized in my own journey is that often when I'm not achieving my goals or I'm not seeing that manifestation, or I'm not seeing the money showing up or those opportunities, there's something holding me back. And it's generally a narrative, a belief that I have. It's some sort of thought that keeps kind of dwindling in my mind. And sometimes I'm conscious of it and sometimes I'm not conscious of it. And so I wanted to really have this conversation with us before the month ends, because I feel like so many of us are stuck, meaning we're not moving forward towards our goals because we have something that is holding us back. And so I've asked these two amazing women to join me. If you are watching us live, which I already see a couple of you are watching, please feel free to ask questions. We are here collectively to help you. We want to see your success. We want to see you thrive. So anything that we can give you during our time together, we want you to benefit from. If you're watching the replay on the weekends, because I know so many of you like to binge on FemCity content on the weekends, you can always reach out to us. Either Emilah or Rochonda or myself, you can reach out to us on this topic. Again, we want you to succeed. We want you to thrive. And so anything that we can give you, please let us know. So I'm going to start introducing our experts today. So we have Emilah DeToro. She hasn't been with us for a while. It's so nice to see you here.
Nice to be back.
Yeah, so great. So she's an intuitive life and career coach. And we also now have Rochonda, but we're going to call her Ro because that's what her friends call her. Ro Ferrelli. She's the founder of Highest Potential Women Coaching. And she's joining us again. Oh, she's joining us today. By the way, my dog is sick. So if you hear him in the background, that is Arthur. So I apologize. I'm going to try to mute myself if he gets louder. Let's go ahead and start. So Emilah, how do you know what is holding you back? And what can you do to release what is holding you back?
Yeah, for me, I notice you talked about some of it already. Repetitive thoughts, a sense of real like stuckness. You're telling yourself the same story over and over and over, regardless of what the situation is. So one example might be, no matter what is offered to you, your response is, that's too expensive. I can't afford it, right? If you find yourself saying the same thing over and over, it's often a place that you're stuck. And the other thing that can happen is a sense of a confusion, of just not knowing which way to go, right? If you can't get clear about something, it's likely something that's holding you back. Like the narrative underneath that confusion is definitely holding you back. So I also noticed this sense of inertia, like of not wanting to move. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. I want to pretend it's not happening. Right. And so if I know I need to write a newsletter and I'm not writing it, then it's for me to look at, well, why am I avoiding doing this? So those are the three things I noticed: that sense of cycling of the same narrative or story over and over, confusion, just really not having any idea what to do next, which is often a symptom of something that's out of alignment. And then that last one that I just totally blanked on what I said.
That's okay, because you said so much already. So you know what? And that was me. The last one that you said, not wanting to really dive
avoidance.
in.
Yes. Avoidance. Absolutely.
That
avoiding something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the things I noticed. Yeah.
I had permanent rose-colored glasses on my head, like, emotional ones and energetic ones for decades. And it became like a joke with my friends, like, oh, you always see the world in such a beautiful way. But it was my healing, my healing, methods, I guess. And for myself, I had to, those were definitely signs of my life. And for me, the way that I was able to move forward is just stopping, pausing, and just being still, which is the most uncomfortable thing you could ever do, which I think is why most humans don't do it, because all these things start popping up and all these emotions, and you have to deal with it and kind of, process them, sometimes from many decades ago, from your childhood, or from maybe from like last week. So I know for myself, you just described me when I was in my late 30s.
Yeah, I just described me in my late 30s, and sometime maybe even last week. So
Yeah.
I think those things are very present, and that's what I would say about releasing it. Stop, breathe, feel what's underneath all of it, right? And I'm an intuitive. I do energy healing and intuitive coaching. So those modalities can also be helpful if you find yourself so stuck that you can't shift it on your own with your own breathing, your own self confrontation, you might say, in a very forgiving way. Like if the theme for the month is forgiveness. So we're not doing this with harshness. We're doing this with kindness and compassion and care, but really looking at what's going on. Why do I keep doing this? Or why am I avoiding it?
Yeah. So you also mentioned, which I'm going to pull out because you kind of just brushed upon it really fast. And I think it was a really big golden nugget. You mentioned that maybe even yesterday. And so I want to share that sometimes we do forgive ourselves for things that happened, or choices that we've made, or situations we've got ourselves into, or the money situations that we're in, whatever. And we feel like, okay, I'm fixed, I'm perfect. And then another year goes by and you have another narrative. So I want to just highlight that, generally speaking, I have found, and I see you nodding your head, I have found that we have multiple things that are holding us back, multiple narratives, and just dealing with one at a time as they show up, it becomes then easier and easier to kind of evolve and to remove the things that are holding you back. So you're not going to be perfect. If you dive in today and you handle your money story, forgiving yourself for the debt that you acquired, or for the school that you decided to go to that now has you in debt, or the coach that you hired that was $20,000 that turned out to be a crook. I mean, those stories happen often. You know what I mean? Like, so just spending that time in that space means that we're not perfect. It's this kind of journey that we're on. So I love that. Let's go to Ro. And I just want to give some love also to Delilah. So Delilah said, I've been looking forward to this conversation. I'm currently feeling stuck. Thank you for your time and advice. Thank you so much, Delilah. She is our FemCity Bronzeville president. She's just amazing. All right. So Ro, what is your advice for us on ways to know what's holding us back, and then how can we move forward in that?
Yeah, so well, thanks just so much for being here today, ladies, and anybody tuning in. I would say personally, I notice when I'm feeling really stuck is when I'm starting to binge TV and social media in ways that I would not normally consume it. So like, just extended periods of time, kind of going down rabbit holes of like conspiracy theories. It's just like, okay, like what purpose is this serving my life? And then I know I'm like, what am I avoiding? Like I'm probably going through a launch, or building out something new on the website that I've been sitting on for a while. So that's how I notice it in myself. I would say that there's a couple of ways that I like to approach this, because we have the conscious and then we have like the unconscious parts of ourselves that are holding us back. So in a conscious way, you might have like a hint, like you guys were discussing, it could be financial. So you might be like, oh, I'm afraid of investing. So if you know that you're afraid of like investing a large amount of money or going into debt, or whatever it is, if you have a hint to that, I think a really good practice is just writing down all of your fears. And actually, Violet, you reminded me of this practice a few months ago. And this is something I've been doing for years, but I had just kind of forgotten about. So a few months ago, on a call, Violet, you were like, oh, write it all down. And I did. And I was just like, yes, that's what I needed. And it's not just writing it down and looking at it, but it's about writing it down, looking at it, and then like sitting in the emotion of it. You guys kind of touched on that. If you're into any kind of somatic therapy or practicing emotional intelligence, this is the time to like pull out those cards. I even have a free worksheet on my website under resources if you want to have like 5 steps to practicing emotional intelligence. to get you started with that. But essentially you're sitting with the energy of it and you're just really embodying it. So you're kind of like exaggerating, what wants to happen with your hands, or if you want to get really small, or if you want to like, make like any kind of noise that wants to like surface up in your body. Obviously this is a private thing that you would do when you're alone by yourself, but it's really, really effective to like move that energy, move the emotion from the inside out. And that will help you, clear that up inside of you so you can take some steps forward. The other thing I would say, if it's, if you're feeling stuck, it's kind of the same thing. You're not sure what it is exactly. Maybe you've already tried some things that we've mentioned. I would say ask the people closest around you for feedback, right? So like, where do you see me complain repeatedly about XYZ? Because the people around you, like, they know, they see you and they hear you constantly. So they're going to be like, oh, this is an opportunity. And, you're wanting to position yourself to really be open to receiving that feedback. If you catch yourself immediately saying like, oh, no, I don't do that. Okay, hello, that's a huge red flag. So you want to ask yourself, how is it true, whatever that they're saying? Because if you knew what the problem was, you would probably already be working on it. And so this is a blind spot that somebody is spotting within you. And it might not be anything that you would have ever thought of, and sit with it. So just don't even speak back. Just let them give you the feedback. I also have a worksheet for free on my website if you want that, with questions and prompts on how to give and receive feedback in a wholesome way. So
yeah. I love that. And I love the journaling tip also that you mentioned. And I love that you mentioned the rabbit hole, because I think that's more and more I know so many people in my life that generally go down a rabbit hole, and I think it's that avoidance, right? It's just easy to allow your mind to do that because you're just trying to avoid something that you know you need to do, but there's a narrative in there that's telling you that it's not going to work out anyway, right? So if you are avoiding paying your bills, well, I don't have any money anyway. Or if you're avoiding doing that sales call, well, they're going to say no anyway. So sometimes we have those conversations that hold us back, and then that rabbit hole is just like, sucks us in. It gives us the excuse like, oh, I ran out of time. I didn't have any time to do that sales call or to journal. So the other day I found myself completely overwhelmed, just overwhelmed. I had so many things going on, and I journaled, but for the first time I journaled, and then I did an exercise where I added the action steps and then change of the narratives that I needed to edit in order to move forward. Yeah. And I found that to be so helpful. I wrote it all out. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Arthur's having a coughing fit now. But anyway, that was really helpful. So I'm going to mute myself while he has this. But Emilah, what's the best way for Fems to find you? And also your final advice.
Sure. Best way to find me is at emilah.com. So that's, you've got it right in front of you, emilah.com. There's a free booklet on 5 tips to engage your intuition and transform your life. And all of my services are there. You can email me from there. It's just lots of blogs, lots of videos, all kinds of stuff there about my offerings. My final advice is, if you attempt some of these things on your own and you're still stuck, go to your people, whoever your people are, or whoever you notice from the inside that you're called to get some support. Because generally people want to help you, right? We all want you to succeed, right? So whether it's a coach or an intuitive or an energy healer or a husband or a wife or a good friend, seek support in getting unstuck, and be open, like Ro described, be open to receiving something that's uncomfortable, but that's true. And we know it's true because it just really resonates in our body. It sends that little shockwave through us and maybe brings us silent. And then we know really where to spend our energy to clear it, and know that on the other side, life is way better, right? If we move through that stuckness, if we move through that place that we've been avoiding, that belief, well, we're free on the other side. And yeah, it'll come up again, but we'll know what we're working with that time when it comes up later.
And I find that life is more beautiful when you step into fear. Like whenever you step into that super uncomfortable area, life is just shining brighter. And we had a global member a couple of years ago who said that she had become addicted to getting into that uncomfortable space because she knew that she was going to be so much better off on the other end. So she started looking for those moments of being uncomfortable. And I just thought that was so great. And I love that you mentioned, and Ro also mentioned, having the people around you. I know 2 of my darkest moments where I felt like I had emotionally hit rock bottom, there were people around me that were like, no, you have everything it takes. You're going to be fine. And just sometimes hearing that from other people, it helps you to, they're not being very specific with, your blocks, but it helps you to realize that you're not done, that there's more to life than what you're living right now, that to dive in and find those solutions. Ro, what is your final advice and how can Femmes find you to learn more about the work you're doing in this world?
My final advice would be, don't beat yourself up over getting stuck. Every single human being on the planet gets stuck. We all get stuck. It's a marathon. It's not a race. It's going to happen. It's a journey. Like, you signed up for this entrepreneurial path because there is something in you that's becoming more, that's expanding. It's not always about the destination. And it's going to happen. So don't beat yourself up over it. If you would like to access the free downloads that I mentioned, you can head on over to highestpotentialwoman.com. There's a resources tab. You don't even have to put in an email address. You just click on it and download. And if you'd like to sign up, I do send out videos every month that are a couple of minutes to 5 or 6 minutes in length. So to support you on your journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I don't see any questions or any comments. So we are going to wrap up. Again, for those that are watching the replay, you can always add comments, ask questions. We're here for you. Ro, Emilah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to share with us wisdom, advice, and guidance so that we can be better versions of ourselves, step into our greatness by removing those blocks. And there's a whole beautiful world waiting on the other side. So go for it. Dive in deep, remove those blocks, and we look forward to seeing you shine even brighter. Mwah! See you next week. Bye.
Bye, everybody.